AM 1060 WMEL. The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
This is Joe Steckler, your host for Helping Seniors. The purpose of our show is to inform, educate, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors to resources. It's not an easy task, but it is an extremely important task. And we start realizing that over half of Brevard County is deemed a senior citizen by the AARP centers. And remember, I used the word deemed. I'm going to use it later in the show in regards to something that's happening or did happen with Social Security. It's extremely important to people. I haven't even discussed it with Kay yet, but I'll bring it up on the show because it's extremely complicated. But it's the word deeming. So, Kay, don't forget to ask me about deeming during the show. But our show, folks, is paid for by our sponsors. They pay our way. Kindred In-Home Healthcare, the Eye Institute, Dr. Lee Sheldon, dentist, Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, WMEL AM 1060, Wusthof Hospital System, Levin Home Care, Ebony News Today, and we're working on a whole list of new sponsors. One of our newest is Handy Pro of the Space Coast, and we're going to do another TV show with them in 2 weeks. One part of the TV show will be about the therapy dogs. So I've never done a TV show, live show with dogs before, but I guess there's always a first for everything in life. Before we do this show today, folks, I want to tell you that I'm going to turn the reins over to Kay. Kay asked me if she could interview me for the show today, and I said I would be willing to do that. So be prepared for maybe some different answers. And before we get into that, Vince has got a couple of clips he wants to run. And these ladies, if you listen to what they have to say, will give you some indication of why our board of directors and our supporters believe that this program is important. So take a listen.
I'd like to take this opportunity to speak on a matter that I think is very important. I'm a senior citizen in Brevard County, just one of many. I'm almost 80 years old. I currently receive services through a local agency for light housekeeping and Meals on Wheels. My thoughts are this concerning seniors in Brevard County. We're overlooked, we're diminished, we're treated as if we don't matter. Anytime you pick up a local publication of paper, book, or whatever, you can see save this and save that and save the other cause. There's everything in those publications except save a senior.
I understand that you go out and help seniors with about all kinds of things. I don't have an awful lot of money. I'm living on about $90 a week, which I live alone, but I'm on food stamps.
I'm Joe Steckler, president of Helping Seniors of Brevard. We assist and connect seniors with resources to help them age with dignity.
Thank you over and over and over again, because I found out so much valuable information since talking to you that it's so beneficial and so helpful to me and going to be cost savings.
To support Helping Seniors through your own charitable donation, you may call 321-473-7770 or donate online at helpingseniorsofbrevard.org.
Okay, Joe, my turn.
Your turn, Kay.
This is Kay Kaiser. I wanted Vince to play that clip because I think it's a great introduction to Helping Seniors of Brevard. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to hear it again, go to our website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org, and you'll see a caretaker there with a senior gentleman. It'd be a little arrow. All you need to do is just click on that, and you can hear it all again. So for those who did call and leave the message on our voice message, we have a hats off to you for allowing us to have your permission to put that on our website and play it on the air today. But I thought that would set the stage, because what I'd like to do is reflect and go back to the basics here. You have wonderful guests on the radio with you each week, Joe Steckler, and each of them contribute in information and education in their professions that people have no idea about, and it's about what that kind of calls that I get on a daily basis. There's so many thank yous that go out. So I'd like to ask you, Joe Steckler, why did you form Helping Seniors of Brevard?
Well, Kay, I guess it was in 1993 that I became aware of John Harper, and radio station at that time was 920 AM, and it was always been WMEL. And I realized, what it would be like to do a better job of promoting the services that were available to seniors in Brevard County. At that time, there was a guy named Bill Hoskinson. Bill's dead now. Bill was the president of the Community Services Council, which has now been rebranded as Aging Matters. Bill and I worked together to try to do something to promote his organization through what we did at the Alzheimer's Foundation, because we had a radio show. We later had television, and later had all the printed columns and all the various newspapers and periodicals throughout the county. But all along, while I was the director of the Alzheimer's Foundation, we did more than just take care of Alzheimer's patients. We did more than respite. We promoted 211 Brevard. We promoted the Community Services Council. We promoted the sharing centers. We promoted the Habitat for Humanity. We promote, you just about name any nonprofit organization, and I can go back and show you through over 500 radio shows and over 400 television shows how we have promoted what is available to Brevard County. Yet, after 16 years of doing radio shows, 20-some years of promoting nonprofits and what all our capabilities are, I can still go out and speak to a group of people. And recently, I spoke to a group of over 100 people, and after the show, 2 women came up to me, Kay, and said, "Does what you're talking about, Joe, apply to us?" And I asked a couple of questions. I said, yes. You are unremarried widows of World War II veterans. You are eligible for more than $800 a month, Social Security, and food stamps, because that's what these women were living on. And it's particularly galling to me to hear stories like that when I know that the government actually has provided ways for people to not have to live like that. So, yes, if I have a passion for trying to right something that is wrong, I do have that. And it really bothers me that you have to fight people, organizations, to get the truth out, because this business of nonprofits and where the very, very scarce care dollars go is such a jealously guarded business. It stinks to high heaven, Kay, the way people are just kept from knowing how they can get help. And I have never said that the government or any local organization should be responsible for taking care of somebody. But I always believed that if I could put 1,000 people together that donated $100 a year, 1,000 out of 545,000 in Brevard County, if 1,000 people gave us $100 a year, that is $100,000, and that's half of our budget. Why won't people be more involved? I don't understand. I really don't understand. But I do think it's because all the time that I was a director of the Alzheimer's Foundation, we did the same things that we're doing now with helping seniors. And then I saw the pendulum swing the other way. And they started doing things different than I thought needed to be done. So it was in early 2011 that I made the break with the Alzheimer's Foundation, and I said, I'm going to direct my efforts to try to build a better senior program, a better awareness of senior needs, and that's why we formed Helping Seniors.
Right.
We are not in competition with anybody. We could be. Yes, we could be.
Right.
And I'm beginning to realize that maybe the good Lord leads you to do a lot of things different in your life. I have told several people lately, at 82, I wish I was 20 years younger so that knowing what I know now, I could have directed my energies 20 years ago to where we're headed now to try to do a better job of caring for people.
Right.
So this is why I thought that an organization like Helping Seniors would be good. The hardest nuts to crack in this whole thing, Kay, is the industry that actually reaps millions of dollars from senior citizens, namely the long-term care programs,
right,
insurance programs, and the medical community. And
Right.
it's not right. It's simply not right. And the problem is that the average Joe or married Joe citizen doesn't really know what is not happening. That's the real crux of the matter.
Well, I get so many callers too, Joe, and our number, if you are looking for resources, I want to put that out there. It's 321-473-7770. You can also go to our website, helpingseniors.brevard.org, and you can click on the media tab. There you're going to find archived all of Joe's radio programs, all of the television programs you've done, the print, our newsletter, in Hometown News, El Dia Today, Ebony News Today, all of this outreach media that we're trying to do to help educate, like you say, Joe, the public, because I know I get a lot of callers, and they say, when I mention your name, they read your articles. They said, well, you were involved with the Alzheimer's. Well, how did he get involved with Helping Seniors? And my response is simply, Joe Steckler wanted to found an organization that will help all seniors in Brevard.
Yeah.
All
okay,
seniors.
a good classic example is I had a lady, 84 years old, called me at home the other day, and she called you at the office, but she wouldn't talk to you. She wanted to talk to me. And the reason she wanted to talk to me was because she said, I wanted to talk to you about my problem because I used to sell real estate, and I know they're doing something now regarding reverse mortgages that's not right. And she said, it cost me dearly. And I said, send me the information. But I said, why did you pick me? She said, because... And I'll tell you, folks, I'm not pulling any punches today on the show. She called me because she said, you might know somebody in the political business. And she said, at least I know you're honest. And that's why I'm calling you. This morning at 8 o'clock, I have a call from a man. He said, I know you. I've heard you speak. He said, I need to get a new will done. I said, you need... And he wanted a recommendation. I gave him a recommendation. And I said, but at the same time, I sensed that there's more to it. He said, yes, there is. And I said, you really need to look into your durable power of attorney because under Florida law, there's been some changes, and you have to specifically denote the powers you want to give to somebody else in that power of attorney. And,
And what about moving from another state to Florida?
The laws change.
There you go.
The laws
That's my
change.
point. Right.
But, we bury our head in the sands and we don't think about these things. And, folks, I'm just as guilty of it as you are. But, I mentioned a word called deeming. And the reason I got very concerned about that was because Bill Johnson sends me the stuff that comes across from the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys. And a lot of it is gobbledygook. It's hard to understand. But I patiently waved my way through it, and if I got a question, I call Bill or one of his assistants, Sandy or Melanie. They always take the time to answer my questions. But it turns out that under the Affordable Care Act, there were some changes that came about last November the 2nd, 2015, and the Social Security Administration has not yet issued the final regulations with regard to this new law. And what it affects, folks, are those of you that are in your late 50s, early 60s, and starting to think about retiring. Previously, you were able to file and gain certain benefits at age 62, 65, 68, or 70.
Right.
Well, there was a word called, in the last sentence, it said, is an important tool for those who need to make decisions regarding deeming before the deadline. And I said, what the heck is deeming? So I started through the Internet. I looked up and I found it in the Australian law codes. It's where it started, the word deeming in law. And I said, oh, that doesn't apply to the United States. So I started looking more under Social Security and I found it. And what it is that the Social Security right now with 100% certainty is telling somebody to do things that's absolutely 100% wrong. And what's going to happen is that once they make these decisions regarding when to select a retirement, whether at age 62, 65, or 70, if they're a couple,
right,
if they do it incorrectly, the woman is going to get the short side of the benefit. And it's too darn complicated for me to go into it over the air here. But I caution and advise all of you that are listening to this radio show, if you have family, friends that are thinking about retiring and taking their Social Security benefits and still working, you need to ask your financial advisor, or if you don't have one, you need to get somebody and say, hey, John, how does this new deeming thing affect me if my wife and I apply for retirement? The ideal way to do it is if you're, quote, wealthy enough, and that's why this thing came under the Affordable Care Act. It's one of those things that was buried in that darn thing that nobody knows about until it happens. And they will admit the Social Security Administration has not passed any regulations out on how to even deal with this thing. And the people of Social Security, once they make this decision and tell somebody something, and you select the wrong option, you cannot reverse it.
I read that. Yes.
Did you read that?
Yes, I did.
So this is why it's so important for the stuff that we talk about on this radio show, and what I talk about in my articles in the newspaper and the articles of the people that we have to write for our newsletter. It's all honest, good information. And that's why it's so important for people to start asking questions so you can become better informed, better educated, so that you can make wiser and sounder decisions, Kay.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, I want to ask you a question here regarding navigating the elder system. You know, 99.9% of the callers that I get are on a very low income, do not have access to a computer, didn't even know that maybe they can go to the library for an hour, but they don't know how to even use it. But the bottom line is that I know you've mentioned several times that even for you being in 25 plus years in the elder, system, sometimes even you run up against a brick wall and trying to get through.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why the knowledge that I've accumulated over 25 years, we need to pass on to somebody else that's going to take my place. And we're working on that now, folks. I don't intend to see everything that I've put in my beanbox lost. That's why I've tried very hard over the last 18 months to help Kay understand some of the things that I know. She's learned a heck of a lot. There is so much to learn that nobody will ever learn all of it. But I can tell you this, that I know a lot, but I also know that knowing what I don't know makes me very cautious about what I tell somebody. Mm-hmm. And I finally, I'm lucky because the people in Tallahassee know me. We have some friends there. One of them used to be a lady, Carol Waters, that ran the old memory disorder clinic here. She's got a well-connected job in Tallahassee. And if I have a question, I can call Carol. Carol can get me to the right person.
You've got a beeline.
Yeah, I've told her. We have a lady named Greta Jones. Remember that lady name, folks.
Right.
Do you have her phone number here?
I don't have it with me today, but if you call 473-7770, Helping Seniors of Brevard, I certainly can pass that on to you.
I'll give you an example, folks, why this is important. Everybody thinks that you can't get to the top. That's wrong. You can get to the top. If you're having trouble calling the local elder helpline, and folks, I understand the problem because I have the same problems you do. So what do? Is I call the guys in charge of the Senior Resource Alliance that's in charge of Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and Brevard County, and I say, Randy, I don't want to wait on the phone any more than an hour. I said, that's just ridiculous. He said, well, I just don't have the help. I said, do something about getting the help. Tell the people in Tallahassee that we don't have the resources. Right. See, all the money, Kay, is very carefully controlled and funneled through narrow conduits, and it goes to organizations that in many instances simply are not held accountable. And that's
a big problem.
That's what makes it so difficult.
Absolutely. That is the accountability. That's the one thing that we both feel very strongly about, Joe. And you at the helm of Helping Seniors of Brevard will never have that problem of accountability.
Well, we'll talk about that more after the break. Going to take a break now?
Okay.
All right. Stay with us, folks. We're going to take a short break, and okay, back. I'll let her ask you some questions and give him some shorter answers. Stay with us.
AM 1060 WMEL.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, back live with the second half of the Helping Seniors program. Kay is doing the interviewing of me today, but I just want to mention our sponsors for the second part of the show include Senior Scene Magazine, Hometown News, Spotlight Magazine, Seniors Helping Seniors, the Fountains of Melbourne, Beth Courtney of the Braswell Financial Team, Barbara McIntyre, Home Equity Specialist, and folks, you can get some good steers from her, and Canadian Meds of Melbourne, and Vitas Hospice. We're always looking for more sponsors. We are trying to put in place a very solid financial foundation so that the organization will continue without having to worry about what toes we step on, because sometimes you step on toes that should be stepped on, but if you don't step on them hard enough, you seem to get a lot of flack back. And then think about, I don't know about you all, but I watched Megyn Kelly last night with the interview of Dr. Carson and Rubio, and I guess it's just those two. But I liked what Marco Rubio said, and I liked what Dr. Carson said. And it showed me a whole new light on what these men had to say. But both of them had a common underlying theme, and it was this. It's the same thing as we talk about on this radio show, and it's the same thing that I've tried to do in the 23 to 25 years I've worked in the private sector here in Brevard. Try to make people well-informed, informed enough so they can make an intelligent, honest decision on what they want to have happen. It's nice to have somebody out there spouting, we're going to make America great, we're going to do all this.
Right.
But you got to listen to how they think this is going to happen. You don't step into the presidency of the United States without having some good, solid, underlying plans. And that's the same thing, Kay, we've tried to do with Helping Seniors. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you. Okay. You go ahead and ask me.
Okay, well, I want to make sure everybody has our telephone number, and it's 473-7770. Obviously, I'm not there right now. Leave a message, because I do return the calls. You talked about a previous caller that you had spoken to, Joe. That call came in at 8:30 Sunday morning. So even on Sunday, now I didn't call her back in the morning because I was busy, but I did call her back in the afternoon. Calls can come in the evening and the weekend and everything. Your call will be returned because I document every single call that is called into Helping Seniors of Brevard.
Well, all the callers, folks,
yes.
are logged in a virtual system on 2 computers, one at case office and one in my home office. Mm-hmm. So I see everything that comes in, and if the call is not picked upon, the message is picked up by one of us. So we know that people get help. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. That's all right. But I think that a key point for people to understand listening to the program today is we're our nonprofit, but Helping Seniors of Brevard is different than other nonprofit. And I'll tell you why. Number one, shows like this. Joe Steckler feels very strongly, I feel very strongly, our whole team feels very strongly that it's important to educate our public. You know, it's difficult, and like I said earlier, Joe, you ran up against some brick walls earlier in trying to get through certain systems. Imagine how the average person is frustrated, because I had a call this morning from a gentleman who needed some dental work, very limited income, and he was told by his nephew that it's time to look into applying for Medicaid. Well, Medicaid does pick up dental, but I warned him, I said, first of all, you know, there's over 58,000 people on a waiting list. This is not something that happens overnight. So you can go online for the, you know, just even do a Google search. You're going to be taken to the Department of Children and Family Affairs. And you can see on the left side a toll-free number for applying, but you are calling and talking to an individual. But throughout the day, at any given time, they're going to show you the wait time just to talk to a real person. Now, this call came in this morning at 9:30, and already the wait time was 1 hour and a half.
Yep.
1 hour and a half. So people get frustrated.
But it's just, you bring up another thing, Kay. Yeah. So many people still don't get the difference between Medicaid and Medicare.
Right.
Medicare covers doctors and hospital stay. Think of it that way. Medicaid sometimes picks up some of that for certain categories, but you have to know the categories.
Exactly.
Medicaid really has in turn to deal with long-term care.
Correct.
And that's why it's so important that if you're thinking about if you're going to live to be in your 80s or 90s, you better make the right decisions about when you're going to take your Social Security. And that's why the word, when I mentioned that deeming process,
right,
and the Social Security Administration, folks, it's important. You know, and it may in some pieces amount to 25 or 30,000, maybe more.
Right.
But when you're living on $800 a month and food stamps, that's a lot of money over a period of a few years.
You bet.
When you think about it.
And, you know, so many of the callers, Joe, I talk to, you know, they say, well, I'm in good health now. Because I'll ask them, I say, what's your long-term, do you have long-term insurance? Well, no, why do I need that? I've got Medicare. And I said, oh, wait a minute. You told me you're in your 80s or even 90s, and you're living alone, you're on a limited income. What if you fall, for goodness sakes, and you need to get into an assisted living? Do you know that if you're not in the hospital for maybe just a day, that's not going to get you into the whole, I don't want to say the backside of the system, but it literally would wipe you out. Do you have any idea what assisted living costs are today? And, Joe, they have no clue.
Most people don't understand, Kay, that yeah, you can find some speakeasy places where you're going to get by on $3,000 or $3,500 a month, but
if we're talking,
most people are not going to be happy with that.
No,
you're not going to be happy with it,
right.
And you're not going to want to put your mother or your father in a place like that. If you want to provide a Cadillac type care, it's going to cost for an assisted living Cadillac. You're talking
thousands.
$5,000, $6,000 a month.
Thousands.
That's
right.
$72,000 a year. Nursing home costs in Brevard County, and not to scare you folks, the good places are hitting up close to $100,000 a year.
That's right.
And And that's the other thing I learned when I could tell you horror stories from just what I read on the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys. I don't understand all of it. What I do is I pick up 2 or 3 of these things that are really good topics, and then I call Bill Johnson, who I do my radio shows with on legal aspects and for elders, he's a board-certified elder law attorney, one of the few in the county that has those qualifications. Mm-hmm. And I ask him certain questions about it. He says, well, we could talk about that on the radio show. This is why it's so important. When you listen to Bill talk on a radio show, folks, you're getting the advantage of hearing what an attorney that has up to date knowledge of what really is right and what's wrong. There's so many misunderstandings. I read recently about a case in New York where a person had responsibility for somebody in a nursing home, and they thought this person was on Medicaid, and yeah, it was on Medicaid, but the person had violated the 5-year look-back period, and they caught up with them, and they made the person that had signed for the person's care responsible, and she didn't think that was right. Well, at the same time, it's not right, because it turned out that they legally determined that the woman had assets that could have been used to pay for her care, yet they had built the system to where Medicaid was paying it. So they got caught.
Yeah.
And, by getting more and more of these people caught, we're going to do something to reduce the cost of care. What's the answer there? The answer is go to the right person that can help you design a plan legally under the law that will get you qualified for Medicaid if that's the way you're going to go. Now, some people are never going to qualify for Medicaid.
Right.
Others are going to qualify, but if they do what you said, wait till the last minute and expect to get it. And I think you said 58,000 people on a waiting list. I think it's only 45,000.
I think I just put another article.
Only 45,000 folks.
Well, that's a tremendous amount of people in that itself. But
here's the other key to this thing is you might be on the waiting list, and you might be, they evaluate the people as categories 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
Anybody that has a priority to you based on what their needs are, they move ahead of you. You move down on the list. So when people ask me about it, I say, do the very best you can to get qualified for Medicaid if you're going to be on Medicaid. And most people that are going to have to qualify for Medicaid know it.
And you know what I think, too? I think Bill Johnson submitted a new article to me recently regarding how many people who applied for Medicaid that actually passed away during that wait period. And that just breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that I think of people, there's a lot of mistakes and assumptions. Something came out, and I never thought about it until we had a phone call at the office from a gentleman that had been billed for ambulance costs.
Medicare.
He thought Medicare was going to pay for the ambulance transport to the hospital. What had happened was he had a problem in his home. The paramedics came. His son was there. And if I tell it incorrectly, Kay, correct me.
He had a mini stroke.
And
so the son called 911. The EMTs came.
Right.
And by the time they got there, he was considered okay. So they gave him a choice of whether or not to have his son drive him to the hospital or he go by ambulance. So in follow-up with this fellow, I called and he said, well, he wasn't sure if he'd have another stroke, so he opted for the ambulance. But he only had Medicare. So the problem is that they declined paying for that ambulance bill.
Well, it's important to know.
That's right.
Medicare will not pay for your transport to the hospital if it's not documented in the paramedic notes that you needed to go to the hospital.
And it's life-threatening.
Yeah, life-threatening.
Right.
So these are all the little things that, we're not going to all know all these little things. But if we start looking in the right place, start listening to the right programs, start reading the right things, maybe we can do something to mitigate some of the mistakes that we do make, Kay.
Absolutely.
And one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is not knowing about the wonderful veterans benefits that are available.
Absolutely.
I am so sick and tired of hearing about the Medicare or the Veterans Administration not doing this or not doing that. What we don't know about, we don't talk about, are all the many wonderful things that they do. I had a problem. I think one of my hearing aids is broken. I get my hearing aids to the VA. I served 38 years in the military, so I get my hearing aids to the VA. And last week I called out there and I said, I think I have a problem with my left hearing aid. I think it's broken, but it needs to be looked at. And the woman said, the first opening I have, sir, to get you in is next Monday at 10 o'clock. I said, that's wonderful. I'll take it. Now, my problem might just be the clip in my ear, so I'm going to tie the doctor up. If they had enough understanding or trust in people calling in that have hearing problems or dental problems and say, would you come into our emergency service? We'll have a tech take a look at it and say, the problem can probably be fixed in 3 or 4 minutes by a tech, but they're going to schedule me for a 15-minute appointment with a doctor. So what we need to do is not just complain about something. We need to start doing things that can put the actual honest fixes on the system, okay?
I totally agree. I want to share with you another caller had called. He needs some dental work. And he thought that he could have some dentist work done. He was a veteran. But because his dental work, this dental situation was not a result of a service-related problem,
right.
He was denied. So there's a lot of unknown information that people take for granted, and they think, this or that. So I always put the challenge out there, please call us. I always say, Joe knows this. If I don't know the answer, I'll usually call him, but then I can do a lot of research on my own too. But we always try to find a resource, and we can't help 100% of all of you out there, but a large majority of you we have. And so many times, Joe, because I follow through and ask my callers to call me back, let me know the results of the resources I've given them.
Yeah.
That makes us different too. And if I don't hear from them, I will call them. And you know what the response is, Joe?
Thank you. We thank you.
You're the only ones that call us.
Yeah.
Get so many God blesses you throughout the day. You really do care. And I said, yes.
Well, this is the part.
And share the information with your friends and other seniors that you know.
This is part of the problem, Kay. Right now we've got between 67 and 75,000 veterans in Brevard County, plus so many spouses of veterans. And spouses of veterans from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam all qualify for these benefits, yet they don't know about some of these things. It's just like there is a clinic that is a free clinic that will help with dental problems. There's another one with eye problems for anybody, but. And if you don't know the answer, if I don't know the answer, then we take it upon ourselves to try to call somebody else that might know the answer to the problem. So what we're saying to you, listener, is that we don't always have all the answers, but we can at least try to get you pointed in the right directions. And sometimes, we can't do all the research. People expect us to give them a clear-cut, unbiased answer. That's not always possible.
Right.
But it is possible to do something positive to try to help somebody. And one of the things that Kay and I wanted to talk about, and I do want to just say a couple of things. This is a aging council that we formed as an ad hoc committee from the board of directors from the helping seniors, and Kay had just pulled up the results of a survey we did. And what was really, and I'll use the word, sometimes I like to say what Glenn Beck says and Hannity says sometimes. it's criminal.
It is.
It is criminal that in a county of 50% of the people are senior citizens, that we've never had a survey pertaining truly to seniors until our volunteer committee of roughly 40-some people did one last year, and we analyzed over 400 return surveys. Yes, it's a small sample, but it's a better sample than some of these darn polls as you get on who's leading in the presidential race when they take 100 people.
That's right.
So what we're doing is we're having a meeting on the 5 March?
A week from tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. We are reconvening the Advocacy Council to do a follow-up survey, and this time we're going to ask the county commissioners to have the county housing and human services staff get involved and help us get this thing more widely spread throughout the county so that the results come from a more expanded group of citizens so we get a better return on our product. But read the results of the first survey. Read those the first 7 bullets, okay?
Okay. Well, this is interesting. On the survey, we actually had a place where they could make comments. And we had, through our volunteers, hours of volunteer hours put into this. I mean, if anybody were to be paying for the type of plan that we submitted, would literally cost thousands of dollars because we had it through a pie chart and percentage-wise. But tied in first place, 17% reported, and these are people actually writing down comments. It's not just answering the yes, 1, 2, 3, or 4 to check, but writing down the comments. So we compiled all this. 17% report needing better access to information, And that's what helping seniors at Brevard, Joe, is all about with the outreach media. Another 17% need help with finances and managing bills.
And that's exactly why you asked me years ago why I thought about starting helping seniors. I knew that there was no ready fund to help seniors. The county does not have any funds earmarked for senior needs on an annual basis, and in a county where the second highest contributor to the funds, for the general revenue funds, are senior citizens.
That's right.
We have no money going in for senior needs. That is not right.
It's not right.
We don't have a senior home in this county. Oh. This county gets really away with something, and there's a lot more I'll say sometime on another show, but we don't have the time for it today.
But that's why we need your help, listeners, because in order for us to survive, to continue with our efforts to help reach out and to educate and continuing our outreach media that we do so much, and to go to the far, it means these are volunteers that have joined with us that feel strongly about how important it is to have a plan in place, because Brevard County is only going to increase in percentage with seniors. The baby boomers are already there.
A quick thing. Let's don't go into those other bullets. Let's stick with the other bullets there.
Okay.
The other 17% said that they had financial problems.
That's right.
So I mentioned earlier that years ago I thought about something that we needed to do to put a funding instrument in place that could help seniors. We want to start a senior endowment. I talked to somebody this morning about sponsoring a car raffle. A lady donated a 1992 Jaguar. It only has 38,000 miles on it. It's gorgeous. I drove it today down to show it to a car dealer. He said, send me the information on what you want me to do. I'll get back and I'll see if we can do it, Joe. If we can do that, we're going to sell these tickets, $25 a piece. And, folks, I tell you, honest to God, I am not lying. I'm telling you the truth. Over the last 3 months, every person that has seen the car I've talked to says, let me know when you start selling tickets, and we'll do that. We're out of time.
All right. Well, Joe, as usual, you're fantastic, and your heart is with helping seniors of Brevard. So let us help keep us going.
Okay. Remember, folks, the phone to get K is 473-7770. 473-7770. Thank you for listening. We'll be with you next week. Thank you.